Hello everybody, this is Christian back from Blue vs. Orange TCG, bringing you another Transformers TCG video. This time we're going to be doing a continuation off of the Energized Mechanic Overview video that I did just a little bit ago. And today I'm showcasing three Energized Archetype decks for the Titan 1 format that I am most excited to be trying out and playing, that I think will do pretty well. Looking into this next monthly here, which I know is T1. At the time of recording this, we haven't gotten a whole lot of we haven't gotten the new information on the new ban list, the tournament formats, the structure, the prize structure, all that for season 6, but we do know that the first format is going to be Titan 1, so I wanted to showcase some decks that I'm excited to play that really leverage this new energized mechanic that I think is going to be really good. I think it's going to introduce a lot of interesting things going into the metagame from the previous season 5 formats here. And for now, we're just going to jump straight into the video here. The first deck here that I want to go over is a Soundwave deck, an ATP 2 Soundwave deck, Soundwave Energized I call it, where the characters are Soundwave Intelligence Coordinator from ATP 2, Leader Wreck-Gar, that's right, the Legend Mode character, and Autobot Skid. So this is actually, excuse me, this is kind of a new take on the Soundwave Wreck-Gar list that saw quite a bit of play in ATP 5. It was definitely like a top 8 list, so we saw a top 8, top 4, a lot of different runs. It was running Huffer instead of Skids. Never quite broke through that line for those events, but I think this list has a whole lot new tools to play with. It has a whole lot of new toys and everything else that you're going to be able to see going through this deck list here. Starting off with some of the actions here. Usual pumps, 3 loop in battle, 3 bigger they are. It's a blue deck, what are you going to expect here? But going over the Energized Enabler cards. So right away we have Skids. Skids is an enabler. He's kind of our main flipper for the deck. Soundwave is definitely like a flipper for the list, but he's definitely not one that you're always going to be flipping all the time. To his alt mode, he has a really strong alt mode ability, but throughout most of the game you're probably going to be flipping Skids, who's going to both enable your Energize as well as countering other opponents' Energize abilities by putting a card from your KO under your deck as well. So not only are you building up Wreck-Gar's or Gruesome Legion's big bot mode attack size, but you're also kind of an anti-Energized list by taking away some of the enablements of your opponents if they're playing an Energized list as well. Along with that, you're also playing 1 Reverse Engineer and 1 Take No Prisoners and 1 Catch and Release. So these are like the 3 I call the trio of Energized Enablers here. In most lists, you probably see playing more than just one of each of these. Take No Prisoners, obviously, once you reach Energized 3 is a burn 2. Obviously, it's fantastic. Reverse Engineer, we play a lot of upgrades in this list. This is kind of like an upgrade heavy-centric list that we're playing here. So Reverse Engineer is really good here. We also are essentially 3 to 2.5 specialists here, because Soundwave is a specialist all the time. Skids is a specialist, I believe, in his alt mode. And Wreck-Gar, once he arises to Gruesome Legion, he's a specialist in that mode as well. Specialist range melee as well. And then 1 Catch and Release. Most lists will probably only run more than just one of each of these. But the reason why we're only running each of these is because our other Energized Enabler is Mad Science. Because we're essentially having a 3 specialist team over the course of the game, Mad Science works really, really well in our lists. We can get to the Energized 4 pretty easily over the course of the game. It's a blue for Soundwave, it's a blue for Gruesome Legion, and it can be a blue for Skids when in alt mode. So you're really having a whole you're not really sacrificing too much on pip coloration on your flips for this skill. And just being able to essentially reclaim and play an upgrade off the top of your list once you reach Energized 4 is really strong. We run like a nice little upgrade package here in the deck as well. And then of course our 3 secret actions, 2 hidden 4, 2 sidearms, 2 downfall. You can switch these up any way you want, but I figured this is a nice little starting off point for people, and then kind of switching up their secret actions as they see fit. The upgrades though, I think the upgrades are a really cool part of this list here. We're running, for the weapons, 2 Energon Axe, 3 Handle Blaster, pretty standard, 1 Enforcement Batons. Because we're not running like catch off guard in this list, we want to make sure we have some targeted removal. I think Enforcement Batons does really well with that being a green. 2 Soldiers Blaster, usually you only really want to run 1 with Wreck-Gar. But because of one with the Mercenary, but because of Wreck-Gar's rise conditions of having to have both Autobot and Decepticon, Scoundrel's Blaster and Noble's Blaster look really bad in the list, honestly. So just having a second Soldier's Blaster I think is actually perfect because it still covers most matchups. And you could potentially sideboard into a different one if you need be in the board. If you were going against like an all Decepticon, you want to make sure that Soundwave has a really good weapon to swing with as a green. And then 2 Throwing Blade. This card's kind of a niche one. I'm not like a huge fan of this card as an Energized list, but we also aren't running like a whole lot of Black Pips and stuff to have like early game weapons on like Skids and Wreck-Gar in the early game. And so having just 2 of these and having it even be in the late game be a Pierce 3 along with the bigger they are if they don't flip a Black Pip, it's still like a really good like weapon here. And there's no reason for me not to really run 2 of these in my opinion in this list. And then our armors, we're running 1 Force Field, 1 Bashing Shield, 1 Sturdy Armor, and 1 Reinforced Hull. This is Titan 1, so I think the Reinforced Hull is going to be a really strong card here, being able to get +2 against those pesky Legend Mode and Body Mode characters. The Sturdy Armor, there's a lot of ranged characters still existing in the game, so being able to have another armor that can potentially get +2 against a lot of folks in the field is really going to be good for this list as well. And then our utilities, 1 W5 Jar Blaster. I think Jar Blaster is such an amazing card coming into the Season 6 ATP 6 format, just because, excuse me, without things like Belligerence and hostilities, decks that leverage like tons of bold and tons of tough are going to start coming out of the woodwork again. And I think this card is going to be really important to have access to kind of help counter those cards now, because it's definitely like the main way to counter a lot of those lists now. But also just like the fact that when we get Energized 4 on our Mad Science, we can just kind of play this from the scrap pile as our action is incredibly strong. So we have this little toolbox effect going on here. 1 Absorption Core, 3 Opportunisms, of course, because we got a Merc on our team, and then 2 Reflector Cell. I always have trouble deciding between Reflector Cell and Guardian Shells for lists, but I think because of the armors that we're running already, we're totally okay with just having the Reflector Cell be the 2 of here, because we're going to be mainly having these armors be +2 defenses against a lot of things, in my opinion, in the Titan 1 format. So I think 2 Reflector Cell looks really good in here, and it's more removal as well, because you want to run a lot of your upgrades are the removal here. So this is just a base list here. I think this list looks pretty good going into Titan 1. It has anti-energized capabilities. It has a really easy way to fully keep your energized ability online with Skids and Mad Science. And then Wreck-Gar, you essentially have 2 huge ramp threats in Soundwave and Gruesome Legion. You really have to decide which one's going to be the bigger threat over the course of the game. And then, excuse me. And then you also have this deck is kind of weird because your way of attacking is going to be mainly like attacking with Wreck-Gar, and then you actually attack with Soundwave second, as weird as that is, because you want to start building him up early on, and you want to make your Skids you want to keep your Skids as alive as you can for as long as you can over the course of the game, until the point where like, okay, I feel comfortable sending Skids out next, essentially. So that was our first deck list here. Next up, we're going to be running this bad boy. So on the inverse of the heavy blue Soundwave list, this is a super heavy orange aggressive Nemesis Prime list. So this is with Nemesis Prime Incarnation of Dread, where once you have Energized 1 unlocked, every time you KO a card in your opponent's put a card in your opponent's KO area, if it's an action, you draw a card, and if it's an upgrade, you get +1 on Nemesis. So you actually keep this guy in alt mode for as long as you can over the course of the game, which makes him a great pairing for Chrome Dome and Night Racer. Night Racer is just the best still just the best 5-drop stat stick character if you're looking for a non-flipping 5-drop. Even with only 3 base attack, Grenade Launcher, Supercharge, this girl's still gonna be swinging for like 11 or 12. Doesn't really matter. You have that huge survivability there. And then Chrome Dome, having that turn 1 Chrome Dome flip to KO an action on your opponent's hand, it's setting up your energized abilities early on, and it right away turns on Nemesis Prime's Energized 1 ability. Now, because of the wording on the card, when you flip Chrome Dome and KO an action, or if you take no prisoners KO an action in his alt mode, and if it's the first one you've ever done, you unlock Energized 1, but the check for Energized 1 is already passed by the time you already put a card in the KO, because of Nemesis Prime's wording of when you put a card in. So first you put in a card, that unlocks Energized 1, and then once you start putting more in, you can start doing these effects. This is the distinction there. But that just means over the course of the game, your 3 Take No Prisoners, which is your premier card in this list, being an orange burn card for 2, is insane. your reverse engineers are all going to be essentially like, it can either be a +1 to Nemesis, or they're going to be an extra draw card for Nemesis if you're looking to KO actions. If I were me playing this list, I'd really be focused on getting rid of actions to help leverage Chrome Dome's ult mode ability to get him to a base 7 attacker as your second character, which is super good, and just drawing lots of cards. Aside from that, this is a pretty standard orange list. Aside from that, you got the 3 Take No Prisoners, 3 Fighting Dirty, that's your premier energized pump in the game for an orange energized list, because once you have Energized 2, that card cannot be stopped by Downfall Protocol, which is a really strong, which is still a really strong card coming into ATP 6. Having your +1 Bolt 2 action be unstoppable from Downfall Protocol is going to be a huge boon to orange. It's going to be really difficult for blue decks to kind of have to deal with, especially without end hostilities being in the game. So that's a really important card for you as well. The 3 Take No Surprises are actually pretty important. You can mix this up between Take Surprise and ramming speed if you want, but mainly you just want to make sure you don't get hit by Gyro Blaster because of Nemesis Prime's ability in bot mode for when he swings, deal himself 1, you get Bolt 2. You have Supercharge, you got Power Punch in this list, you have Fevered Edge, which gives you another Bolt 2. This whole list is about flipping like 10 to 11 cards on your attack. It's a really satisfying list to play, but once you see that Gyro Blaster, you want to make sure you get rid of it. That's why you're playing the 3 action removal. I would be playing Crushing Size in this list as well, but we're already at 7 whites with 3 Fevered Edge, 2 Force Field, and 2 Reverse Engineer. That's probably a little bit too many whites. You might have to cut some of those whites down a little bit, but it's just something to keep in mind. Energy Pack, your 11 stars you get there. And then the 2 Withdrawal Protocol, just to make sure that certain characters are going to remain alive on the battlefield longer over the course of the game as you can. Really straightforward list, really fun list, and it's amazing against later decks. This is really the shining deck against things like Wreckers, Major Shockwave, majority of Arisen Legend Mode characters like Master Megatron, ATP 5 Jetfire. Tons of these different characters are leaders, and when he has Energized 3 in bot mode, he gets +2 attack and defense when battling a leader, as well as the fact that he can give himself Bolt 2. As a 7 base attacker with maybe a grenade launcher or supercharge, this guy's one-shotting leaders. Like, there's no way this guy is not going to be taking down certain leader decks, so just keep that in mind as well. You may actually want to have a nice cyborg character, good character in the board that you maybe can take out for Nemesis if he's not looking too good in that certain matchup. Something maybe like ATP2 Soundwave, excuse me, or maybe another Legend Mode character, or maybe just side out the Chrome Dome for Wreckgar instead. Just a whole lot of different ways you can build this guy and think around, but I really like the Chrome Dome list right here. This is going to be something I'm going to be testing out as well into the format. And then the last list that we're going to be taking a look at here, if I can pull it up, is my favorite deck so far, Astro Train. You saw, I'll talk a little bit about this deck. I think this deck is really exciting. Last week, or the week before stream, I played a lot of this Astro Train on stream, and I think it showcased that this guy is incredibly strong. Here's my updated list for it. You are essentially at a half energized list, where Astro Train's flip to alt mode does enable a lot of energized abilities, because you're forcing your opponent to KO a card out of their hand. So you actually get to play things like 3 Take No Prisoners pretty freely, giving you that on color burn again, like what I'm saying. You play the Catch and Release, but more importantly, this deck is just a really, really interesting mixed pip deck that can leverage energized abilities over the course of the game. Because of all your guys getting focus with Slipstream, Shroot, and Astrotrain Dark Moon, you're basically getting 3 free stars on your team, being able to play this really great lineup behind enemy lines, giving all your guys with focus, all your Decepticons with focus +1 defense, making them incredibly tanky. Because they have focus, they're going to be able to find those 12 orange pips when they need them, those 30 blue battle icons. That was 30, right? Yeah, 31 blue battle icons in the deck really easily. You get to play really fascinating cards like Acute Reflexes to build up to like Focus 4 on your Astro Train. Now the Astro Train flip to train mode doesn't give you the +4, it caps at +3, but that's okay. You still play this because that Focus 1, being able to like Focus 4, you're starting to get to the point where you can almost manipulate your draws when they're attacking the Focus 4 Astro Train with the Shroot Gun, and the acute reflexes, meaning that you're able to, on your defense, you're able to see if you want to draw a certain card or not. If you don't want to draw it, you pitch it and hope for another card. You get a little bit of a redo. And it's an extra, and you know, the white on the white getting you a +1 attack and defense makes it still a pretty solid card. You're playing the grenade launchers, you got the reinforced hull. Everything about this deck is all about, it's very reminiscent to like a Decepticon version of Sturdy Boys. Obviously this list, it's actually kind of low on the energized cards here, but you can totally up that to your liking here. You can, instead of playing like the Scoundrel's Blaster and like the Armed Hovercraft, you can play Thrumming Blade to make your Shroot and Slipstream be way more relevant attackers. You can play more Catch and Release, you can play more Reverse Engineer to start getting more upgrade plays from your hand. You have one specialist, so you're able to grab it with the green on the Astro Train Strange, which is really strong. You can really play with this energized section of his cards pretty easily, because you have so much freedom in the pip colors that you could run here because of all the focus that you're running, which is super cool. I'm not sure if I'd play Mad Science in here. I can maybe see it as a one of, only because you do have, unlike the Reverse Engineer, having the green specialist icon not always matter is not as important as the blue sometimes. And you really want to make sure that you're leveraging colors because of running the 3 Master Metallicato here in the list. But again, it's just an idea. It's probably something that could still probably see play in your list pretty easily if you want to leverage that as well. Excuse me. But I think this is going to be a really sweet list. I think it's less energizing than the other 2 lists before it. But it still has energized capabilities to where you're still disrupting your opponent's scrap pile. You're still disrupting one-ofs. You're getting them out of the game. You have your Take No Prisoners that you've turned on. You have Astro Train's flip to alt mode, netting you a card and making your opponent go neutral. Having to KO a card from your hand is a way harder decision than just having to scrap one from your hand, let me tell you. Anyway, I think this deck is going to be really exciting to look into. Definitely, I would expect some of this deck coming into ATP 6 and Titan 1 early on, just because I think this deck is just so cool, and I think a lot of people are excited about it. Anyway, that's all I have for you today, guys. These are 3 Titan 1 legal energized decks that I think are going to be really cool and really exciting to play going into the Season 6 format for Titan 1. There's a whole lot of new toys to play with. We didn't even go over mission strategies at all. There's a whole lot of different ways to build with on this energized mechanic, and I hope you guys are just as excited as I am, and I hope you all have a fantastic day, alright? Take care.